Today our speaker is Brother Llewellyn, and uh, the title is Transformation in Implementation. And he's asking us to read from Matthew chapter 4, verse 18 to 20. Matthew chapter 4, verse 18 to 20. As he walked by Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Immediately they left their nets and followed him.
Oh, wow. Good morning, brothers and sisters. It is a great privilege to be here. I'm all the way from South Africa, and right after the Great Lakes Bible School, there's kind of a bar has been set, so the speakers, they were absolutely amazing, so I hope I can carry on with the path they've set, and hopefully give you guys a good message to remember Jesus Christ today. So what we read there in Matthew 4, verses 18 to 20, is how Jesus is calling his first disciples, just says, just come and follow me. And it's a very simple call. It's not like, okay, I need you to go to Mount Sinai and offer this many sacrifices, and it's just come. And, you just drop your nets and just follow me. And what's interesting is they do this without hesitating at all. Immediately, they dropped their nets and they followed him. And they didn't really know what they were getting themselves into. Quite interestingly enough, they had no idea that this man that they were going to start following was going to create this most influential movement that the world has ever seen. We're still talking about it today, aren't we? And we still have new people following today. And a nice little detail that I like that's in there is they dropped their nets. They left their nets behind. And I think that's already showing that when we follow Jesus and we're becoming fishers of men, we're not looking to catch people and say, oh, you're part of us now. We're actually looking to set people free. Isn't that lovely? We just leave our nets behind. We want to set people free. So we have this God that's in the business of calling people. He called Abraham to start a family. He called Noah to build an ark. He called Jacob to build a well, Nehemiah to build a wall, Jesus to make the way for David to go into the valley. He called Moses to go up the mountain. He called Esther to speak up. He called Job to be quiet. He called Joshua to go for a walk. He called Jonah to give a talk. And, he called Solomon to be wise. So God calls people. Are we in the business of answering? Sometimes God will call us to do things in our lives, but we don't always answer what he wants us to do. And I feel the reason for that is because, unfortunately, we believe in a lie. Not that what we believe in, the gospel, and that is a lie, but we believe that, we need to clean up our act. We need to learn to be more like God before we can follow his ways. We need to become a good Christian before we can become a good Christian. And that is a very dangerous situation to be in, because the call of Jesus to us is not change and then come follow me. Jesus' call is come follow me and you will be changed, which is a very powerful message. So the title of my talk is Transformation Implementation. So how can we transform our lives, and how can we implement these things into our lives? And I would say that step one, if you want to start answering the call, if you want to start following Jesus, just answer the call. If you listen and you want to hear what Jesus and God, what they're expecting of us in our lives to do, if we just listen, we can just answer it. And it might be in the smallest ways, when you just make a small act of, brotherly love towards someone else, or you do a good deed for the day, they say. A small thing like that can be answering quite a big call. From there, I want to actually, so they've been called, the disciples, and now I'm going to read from Matthew 26, verses 31 to 35, if you want to follow along with me. It's where Jesus predicts Peter's denial. And it says, "Then Jesus told them, 'This very night you will all fall away on account of me. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee.' Peter replied, 'Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will.' 'Truly, I tell you,' Jesus answered, 'this very night before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times.' But Peter declared, 'Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you.' And all the other disciples said the same." So now Peter started following Jesus, not quite knowing what was going to happen. He didn't know the ending of the story, but in these few verses, Jesus is making it very clear, it's not a happy ending. We're not going to a land of rainbows and sunshine. The ending, it's not pretty. It ends on a cross. And Peter's response is, "You know what? I got it. It's good. Let's go. Let's die. I'm with you, Jesus." And just a couple of verses after this, Matthew 26, verse 57 to 58, is where it says, "Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest. He entered and sat down with the guards to see the outcome." At a distance doesn't quite sound like, you're ready to go with this man by his side, die with him on the cross. I mean, you're already pulling it back a bit. You're distancing yourself from, the end result. And oftentimes in our own lives, we might see, in this land there's persecution. So I'm just gonna, I still believe in you, Jesus. I know what you're doing is right, but I'm gonna be here on the sidelines and see how it plays out, and then I might join in again. I'll be there in the courtyard, but I'm not quite there with you. And it's quite amazing how quickly things can change in 20 short verses. In Matthew 26, verse 69 to 75, which I'll read as well if you want to follow, it says, "Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and the servant girl came to him. 'You also were with Jesus of Galilee,' she said. But he denied it before them all. 'I don't know what you are talking about,' he said. Then he went out to the gateway, where another servant girl saw him and said to the people there, 'This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth.' He denied it again, with an oath, 'I don't know the man.' After a little while, those standing there went to Peter and said, 'Surely you are the one of them. Your accent gives you away.' Then he began to call down curses. He swore to them, 'I do not know the man.' Immediately a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken, 'Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times.' And he went outside and wept bitterly." And what I find interesting here is there's a physical proximity that Peter has with Jesus. First he's in the courtyard, and then he's in the gateway, and then he's outside. And, there's also a language kind of way that he puts up. At first it's just like, "No, I don't know the man." But then he makes an oath. I promise you, I do not know this guy at all. And then he starts cursing at them. He gets angry. And, it's very dangerous, because in our own lives, we can get into this cycle where, our sin can lead us to isolation from Jesus. And it's really a downward spiral. It's not pretty at all. Because, when we sin, what's the first thing we want to do? When we realize this, we feel ashamed of ourselves. We feel bad about what we've done. We know it's not right. So what do we want to do? We want to go into our rooms and just stuff our face into a pillow and just be done with the world. I don't want anyone to see me right now. I feel bad. And, when we do this, we isolate ourselves from God and the Word and doing the things He wants. We don't live Christian lives because we're just feeling bad for ourselves and isolating ourselves. So we end up sinning more because we're not following God's way anymore. Then we feel more ashamed, and then it carries on and on. But, luckily for us, there's a rooster that crows. And, this rooster crowing in our lives, it's this moment where we are confronted with the sin that we have done, when we feel the shame, when it's like, I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't have said this to that brother, or, when I said I would follow Jesus when I got baptized, I said I wouldn't do these things anymore. I'd become a more Christ-like person. It's the moment when we realize all of that, and it's when we realize we might not be this perfect Christian that we want to be, or that we show other people that we are. We all have this facade that we put up. We had some great talks at the Bible school about this. But you know what I find great about the rooster crowing? It's actually a symbol as well. It's a symbol that it's the start of a new day. It's a symbol that, the dark is fading and the light is on its way. That rhymed. I just realized that. So, the rooster crowing is a reminder to us that God isn't finished with us yet. Even though we're not perfect, it's that God's still going to work in our lives. And the feeling of sorrow, believe it or not, it's actually a good thing. It's good to feel bad inside. It shows that we realize that we're doing wrong. In 2 Corinthians 7 verse 10, we read, "Godly sorrow brings repentance that leads to salvation and leaves no regret." So this sorrow that we feel, this heartache that we have inside when our stomach feels upside down because we've failed God once again, it actually means that salvation for us is just around the corner. So I'd say that the second step to implementing this Christ-like living is we need to learn to love the rooster. John 21, verse 15 to 19, is right after the supper when Jesus says, when they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said, "you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." Again Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." The third time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know all things, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." Now these couple of verses, they used to always confuse me. Oh, why all this repetition, And then I learned about the two different kinds of love. You've got the agape and the philia. And what's interesting as Christians, or when we read about the word, we focus on the love and the love and the love and the love. But there's actually a couple of commandments in there. And when we read it with the actual loves as well, Jesus says, "Do you agape me?" And Peter replies, "I philia you." "Do you agape me?" "I philia you." And then Jesus says, "Do you philia me?" And then Peter realizes, you know what? I've made a mistake. Jesus is expecting this much of me, but I can only come up to here. I'm not quite what I need to be yet. Because agape, we know, is a selfless, sacrificial kind of love, and philia is just this affectionate regard for your brother. So Jesus already knew, Peter, he said he's going to go and die with me, but the way he's, responding to my questions, it's already showing that, he isn't fully transformed. But what I like about this is, even though, Peter's love isn't quite what Jesus expects from him, is the command doesn't change. He's still saying, "Feed my sheep, feed my lambs, look after my flock." And even though Peter is still flawed, Jesus still wants to use him. And just like for us, even though we might not be these flawless, perfect Christians, we can still be used by God. And our greatest misery, I feel, and what I learned at Bible school, is oftentimes we have these trials that we go through, or we might stumble and we might, fail or fall, and these things can actually become our greatest ministry if we use it properly. If we see, okay, I made this mistake, but God helped me through this. I can help a brother that's going through the same thing. Or because I have suffered this thing, I can, serve God in a different way. So I want to suggest that our third step is that we mustn't give up serving God and wanting to live the way that is appropriate just because we're not perfect. And it's very difficult, Jesus being our example, to keep up with that standard, because we're all humans after all. And I feel like it's almost a weekly process of just rinsing and repeating this. Every Sunday we come here and remember Jesus and what he's done for us, and we take the emblems and we get this new rejuvenated spiritual healing, and then we go out in the world, and then it's just temptations and stumbling blocks and all these things that we have to deal with. But we just need to rinse and repeat, because transformation, if we want to really be transformed and become more Christ-like, it's just answering the call and getting back in the game, getting back into church. And it doesn't matter how many times the rooster is calling, as long as we remember that we're in this world that is very dark and scary, compared to what Jesus and God would like for it. And when we come to remember Jesus on a Sunday like this, it's not just what he's done for us, it's also a symbol that we're waiting for him to come like the sun that rises in the east. And we look forward to that day when we can break bread with him in the kingdom. Amen.
Thank you, dear brother, for message. Let us sing number 239 from the Green Book. O God, unseen yet ever near, we come to seek thy face, our hearts made wiser by thy fear, and humbler by thy grace.